Ever get that feeling like you're talking to a brick wall? Or like maybe you're the one missing something in the conversation?
Oh, totally. Like, we're all speaking different languages sometimes, even when, well, we're not.
Exactly. And it turns out there might be something to that. In this deep dive, we're exploring the four basic personality types. We're jumping into Surrounded by Idiots, a book that breaks down these personality types by color: red, yellow, green, and blue. And to help us decode all of this, we have our expert. So what makes this book different from, all the other personality type books out there?
Well, the thing about this book is it's not just about slapping on a label. It's more about, it gives you these frameworks for really understanding how people process information, how they make decisions, how they see the world.
So it's about recognizing patterns, not like putting people in a box, right?
Exactly. It's about understanding, not judging.
Which I like. So let's dive into these four personality types. We've got red, yellow, green, and blue. Where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the reds. You know the type. Walk into a room and you know they're there.
Yeah, big personalities.
Totally. The book describes them as driven, assertive, always striving to be at the top. But what's interesting is it's not just about ego. Their energy, it comes from this deep desire to make things happen, to leave their mark.
So classic go-getters. Okay, what about yellow?
Think social butterflies, bursting with energy, the life of the party.
I was just going to say, always the center of attention.
Right. But it's more than that. They really thrive on interaction, on connecting with people, sharing ideas. That's where they get their energy.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got our driven reds, our social yellows. Who are we missing?
Well, now we get to the greens. Almost the opposite of yellows, actually, when you think about outward energy.
Okay, so are they like the quiet ones?
You could say that. The book talks about how greens are all about harmony, stability. They're incredibly empathetic, and they avoid conflict like it's the plague.
Makes sense. But they still have opinions, right? Just maybe not as loud.
Absolutely. They're just more focused inward on maintaining balance, creating peace in their environment.
Interesting. So that leaves us with blue. What's their deal?
Blues. Think of them as the architects of the personality world. Structure, accuracy, logic, that's their jam. They analyze everything.
Oh, so they're the ones who always point out the flaws in your plan.
Well, you could see it that way, or you could see it as them being incredibly effective problem solvers. They've already thought of every angle, you know?
True, true. Okay, so we have our four colors: red, yellow, green, and blue. But I'm guessing most people aren't just one pure color, are they? Like, it's got to be more nuanced than that.
You're absolutely right. Most of us are a blend of two, sometimes even three types.
So it's more about figuring out your dominant colors and how those interact.
Exactly. And understanding those dominant traits, well, that's the key to unlocking a whole new level of communication. And that's where things get really interesting.
So we've got our reds, yellows, greens, and blues. But like we were saying, it's not always easy to spot them right away.
Right. It's more nuanced than that.
Yeah,
And that's where things can get a little messy.
totally. Like just the other day I was in this meeting and a colleague, total red by the way, just tore apart my presentation, just like ripped it to shreds. Yeah, it was rough. But later I was thinking, maybe he wasn't trying to be mean. Maybe it's just how reds communicate.
That's exactly the kind of perception gap this book digs into. What one person sees as direct, another person sees as just plain rude.
Okay, yeah, I get that.
Like with reds, they're all about results, right? So they see a problem, they want a solution, and sometimes they forget about all those, well, feelings and stuff.
Well, totally. Makes sense. But still, it's like, hello, I have feelings here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And especially for someone who's more of a green, like you said, they thrive on harmony, on everyone getting along.
Hmm.
So that kind of direct confrontation can be really tough to handle,
Oh, for sure. It's like my whole world just feels off balance, and then I start second guessing everything.
which is totally understandable.
Hmm.
It's all about understanding those different perspectives.
Okay, I'm with you. So we've talked about reds and greens, but what about those yellows? I have to admit, sometimes their energy just exhausts me.
The yellows, yeah, they're a face of nature. But here's the thing. The book talks about how that energy, that constant need for interaction, it's actually tied to their creativity.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about being the center of attention.
Not necessarily. They make connections, brainstorm, come up with new ideas, all while they're chatting away.
Huh. I never thought about it like that.
And that's why sometimes they can seem scattered, but they're actually just connecting the dots in their own way.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. I'm remembering this part in the book where they talk about a blue and a yellow trying to work together. It wasn't pretty.
Oh, I remember that one. Classic clash of styles.
Right. The blue had this super detailed plan all laid out, and the yellow just kept going off on tangents.
Yeah, and the blue is probably thinking, just stick to the script.
Exactly. But then, get this, one of those tangents actually led to this brilliant breakthrough idea. Who knew?
It's a perfect example of how those differences, they can actually be strengths if you use them right.
I love that. So we've talked about reds, yellows, greens. What about the blues?
Ah, the blues.
I feel like they get a bad rap sometimes for being too serious, too focused on details.
Yeah, I get that. But for them, it's not about being serious. It's about, well, accuracy.
Right, right. Everything has its place.
Exactly. And they have this incredible ability to predict problems because they've already gone through every single detail in their heads.
Okay, yeah. When you put it that way, it's kind of amazing.
Right. So instead of seeing those differences as obstacles, it's about learning how to use them to your advantage.
I like that. It's like teamwork makes the dream work, but personality-specific teamwork. Even better. Okay, so we've explored these personality types, how they see the world, how they drive us crazy sometimes.
It can be a wild ride, that's for sure.
But now for the big question, how do we actually use all of this? Knowing is one thing, but putting it into practice, that's the real challenge.
You're telling me, I mean, we can't exactly go around color coding everyone we meet, although that would be kind of fun.
Right. Excuse me, sir. Are you a red or a green? I need to know how to talk to you.
Imagine that. But seriously, this is where the book really shines because it gives you these practical strategies for communicating with each personality type.
Okay, so like a user manual for dealing with people.
Yeah.
I like it.
Exactly. And one of the most helpful sections is about giving feedback. Because, let's be honest, that's where things can get really tricky.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Feedback, constructive criticism, whatever you want to call it. It's a minefield.
Totally. But knowing how to tailor your approach for each personality type can make all the difference.
Okay, so let's break it down. Let's say I'm dealing with a red, someone who's driven, assertive, maybe a little impatient. What's the best way to give them feedback?
With reds, it's all about directness. Cut to the chase.
So no sugarcoating.
None whatsoever. They want the facts, the bottom line. And always, always back up your points with concrete examples, data, evidence.
Because reds don't just take your word for it.
Exactly. They need to see the logic, the reasoning behind it.
Makes sense. And what about greens? How do you approach feedback with someone who's all about harmony and avoiding conflict?
Well, with greens, you have to remember that feedback, even well-intentioned feedback, can feel like an attack on their sense of balance.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
So it's all about creating a safe, supportive environment. Start by acknowledging their strengths, their contributions, and focus on how your feedback can help them achieve their goals, maintain that sense of harmony.
So it's less about pointing out flaws and more about, like, gentle guidance?
Exactly. And always frame things in a way that feels collaborative.
Got it. Okay, now for the yellows. How do you give feedback to someone who's, well, always on the move, always thinking about a million things at once?
With yellows, you got to keep it light, keep it engaging, use visuals, tell stories, make it fun.
Because ain't nobody got time for boring feedback, right?
Especially not a yellow. And here's a pro tip. Follow up in writing.
Oh, smart. Because they've probably already moved on to 5 other things.
Exactly. A written summary helps them process and remember.
Good to know. Okay, last but not least, the blues. What's the key to giving feedback to our detail-oriented, logic-driven friends?
With blues, it's all about being thorough, being prepared.
So, no surprises.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Present your feedback in a clear, logical way with data points, examples, all the supporting evidence.
Basically, come to the table with a full-blown presentation on how they can improve.
Pretty much.
Right.
And don't be afraid to get into the nitty-gritty details. They actually appreciate that.
Wow, this has been so helpful. I mean, we've all had those moments where we just didn't understand where someone was coming from or how to get through to them.
Absolutely. But what I love about this book is it gives you a new lens to look through,
Yeah.
a way to decode those interactions and build more meaningful connections.
And isn't that what it's all about? Understanding each other a little bit better, navigating those differences, and maybe, just maybe, not driving each other so crazy in the process. So to our listeners, next time you find yourself in that communication breakdown, remember this deep dive. Think about those colors, think about those perspectives, and see if you can find that common ground. Until next time.